Keaton and Chaplin thing is interesting. I did actually want to ask you about that. I've been meaning to ask you about that since we had the class about it, because Mick is very strong pro Chaplin, and his argument is for the greater spiritual dimension and emotion of Chaplin's work, and my dad certainly is almost anti-Chaplin, very pro Keaton. And I'd always thought of myself as pretty egalitarian, though liking Keaton more and definitely thinking he was funnier. But then when we watched Seven Chances and Sherlock Jr. for Keaton, which are both hilarious and hold up basically completely, aside from a brief instance of blackface, which is a little uncomfortable. But sure. And then we watched Chaplin. We watched Modern Times, which I remember seeing in 6th grade and thinking was just great. And I don't know if I laughed once the entire movie. I thought it was terrible. I hated it so much.
Really?
And I don't know if it was just my mood or something, but Chaplin is just not funny. I mean, I don't know. I think I find his movies very moving. Like the ending of City Lights is very affecting, and Mick showed it, and I was like, me and my dad are getting like teary-eyed watching it. But
yeah, I mean, I think to me that's kind of where Chaplin shines. I would say I agree. He's not very funny. I mean, I guess sometimes he is, but his humor is very. I mean, it's obviously very slapstick in a similar way that Keaton is, but Keaton is just kind of like a very deadpan personality, and so like he captures a certain I don't know, they're both I think they're both funny, but in different ways, I guess. I would say Chaplin's real shine is getting the sort of I do agree with Mick, getting the sort of emotion to come through. Kind of what I mean. I've seen a lot of silent films, and most of them are fairly emotionless, except for some. There certainly some exceptions, but most of them have they're not quite there on that level of like hitting you in the way that more modern movies do. And even movies in the 40s, I would say, is kind of where that like really picks up.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think that's interesting because I think that's, for me, that's why Chaplin is still held up as like so fantastic, is because he was able to get emotion to come through the sort of silent genre, and he was able to. It wasn't just one emotion either. It was a whole range of emotions, about this character of the tramp and the surrounding characters, and I don't know. I really.
Which of his movies have you seen? You've seen, because I've seen City Lights, Great Dictator, Modern Times, and The Gold Rush. Are those the ones you've seen, probably, or?
Yeah, probably. I'm just looking up his
because. I mean, yeah, you can't. There's no argument that Keaton is more emotionally affecting than Chaplin. That'd be impossible to argue. But I don't know. I look. Maybe these things are just subjective. It's what we're finding out in this comedy class, that so many things that I think are completely unfunny, people think are hilarious. There's people who thought the Marx Brothers weren't funny. Like half the class thought the Marx Brothers' Duck Soup wasn't funny, which are like one of these modern comedy,
Yeah, Duck Soup is very. I mean, it's so outlandish. That's the only Marx Brothers film that I've seen, though.
Yeah.
So I've seen many of his shorts. So I think I've seen about 5 of his shorts, including Police, The Vagabond, Easy Street, The Immigrant.
Oh, wow.
And I don't know, one other. I did just there was like a day where we watched like a bunch of his shorts. I think I've seen The Kid. although I can't remember it, to be honest.
He showed us a clip of that. That's where he has adopts a little kid from the street, and it was very, very moving.
I've seen The Gold Rush. I've seen City Lights, Modern Times, The Great Dictator. Yeah, so that would be it.
Yeah,
and I guess those are kind of his standouts as far as his. I mean that yeah. I guess The Circus is probably one that I
some
should
people
see,
really like
basically,
Limelight, but
yeah,
Great Dictator and City Lights are probably the ones people hold up the most, and Modern Times, which is odd that I had that reaction to it. I mean, I have a feeling Great Dictator probably does hold up because it's more serious, and same with City Lights. But
yeah, I agree.
I
remember
is
being
not funny to me.
I remember being incredibly moved by City Lights. I thought it was a terrific movie. I still do. I think it's incredible. But I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say. I think they both hold their place as far as the importance of silent cinema. I mean, I think they're essential viewing, both of them. And I would say if anything, like you'd want to watch, you'd want to watch City Lights and The Great Dictator, and maybe his shorts. Maybe that would be it.
I think it's just like the idea is for me is that, Chaplin there's like clowning to him, like, how clowns are not funny ever, it's like that sort of thing where you watch him and he's putting on these expressions and it's like, you feel like he's trying really hard. And when I watch Keaton, it reminds me of when I watch someone like Norm or, Louis or some like a great comedian where it's not, you feel like there's no effort behind it. You feel like they're just saying these things off the cuff. And even though it's not verbal, it's visual, you feel like that it has that quality. Keaton has that quality where he's just, the blankness of his expression is a big part of what makes him so funny, I think.
And I would say just his the talent that he has as far as there's like athleticism in his performance. There's like almost the impossibility of what he's doing too. I mean, every now and then on normal Twitter, and not even film Twitter, that clip of him on the train throwing the log to clear
is that
the train
really
tracks. That resurfaces. It's kind of a meme, I think.
Wow!
And so
that's like one of the most amazing things I've ever seen in a movie.
It's incredible. I think one the one that beats it for me is the house drop. That's
even more dangerous.
It's just stunning. It literally leaves you with like all of the air in your lungs like out. You were just
you like tighten your shoulders like along with him as he's doing it.
It's incredible. But
yeah.
Anyway,
I'm gonna close. I thought I could get away with leaving the window open, but do you hear those cars going by?
I don't, but
well, fuck it. I'm just gonna leave it open. Then Oh, so I lost my transition by mentioning the window. Well, whatever. It's funny to talk about the year in film. We're almost 7 months through now, right?
Yeah.
And what's my number right now? 27 films, and that might count Ozark season 3 and like Louis' stand-up special.
Oh my goodness, 27? How? Literally how?
Let me see. 15, 28. But okay, minus that.
Gosh.
Oh, and I watched Polanski's film also, which is blacklisted and hasn't been released. So really, that's like 20.
Is that the new? Sorry, was that the one that premiered at Cannes or?
No, Dreyfus Affair. It's called An Officer and a Spy. It's about this guy who in the early turn of the century or maybe earlier, who is basically falsely accused of being a spy, and because he was Jewish. Pretty good movie. But yeah, it's not that one you saw that was
terrible. It's just so.
It wasn't terrible, but it was like disappointing. It had a really good I was like, oh wow, like these two great actresses, and but but then it just sort of went nowhere. It was bizarre. It was called
Yeah.
Based on a True Story for the listener. And then, okay, what's your list right now?
Well, I think I've seen. Are we including like television? Is that including?
I mean, well, okay, film first, and then throw in your television.
Okay. As far as film goes, I think I've seen. I'm like literally. I think I've seen 2 movies that came out in 2020. Because I saw Bad Education and I saw Color Out of Space
And Five Bloods.
and Five Bloods. Okay, so that's 3. Which is embarrassing to say the least.
Even by your standards, is pretty low for 7
Oh
months.
yeah. I mean, usually though, I do kind of pack in my movies at the end of the year.
Yeah,
that is kind of tradition. And they always come out at the end of the year, so
right,
whatever. But I mean, this year, what is even going to happen in the end of this year? Maybe they're just going to save it for next year.
It's a strange situation because I mean, like the whole Tenet thing has just been this bizarre story where there's just shuttling it down the timeline of the year.
Now it's indefinitely, right?
Now it's indefinitely. But for a while it was like July, mid-July, late July, August.
August, yeah.
And I think, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I'm pessimistic, but I think a lot of people would agree with me that I don't think theaters are going to reopen this year in any, at least in our area.
I agree.
And if the big cities don't open, you cannot open Tenet in the States.
No.
They're talking about opening it overseas. But yeah, I just think seems like it's risky too, because then you have like leaks and pirating and that sort of thing that Nolan has been trying to avoid. And people are very desperate to see the movie, so they're probably more likely to spread it as well. So it's a very troubling situation, and I think other movies may follow suit with this sort of thing. Of basically, it's just like any movie that's a certain tier of like wouldn't have made a ton of money in the first place. Like Judd Apatow's movie, came out like that. Spike Lee, I think his movie is going to be on Netflix already either way, but I think he's probably very lucky that it did, because I don't think that movie would have done well as a conventional box office.
Not at all.
And frankly, I think I would say the same about something like The Irishman last year, where it's like there is a certain place for these movies that are going on Netflix where, it's the box office isn't as much of a big deal as it would be. But something like Tenet, you can't release that online at all. I don't think, because I mean on VOD, even if you charge $20. Because it needs 800 million to break even. So exactly. That's not going to happen. Frank, and also we may have talked about this on the podcast that didn't get released, but the whole thing of paying $20 for a movie. I mean, I don't think I'd pay $20 even for the new Christopher Nolan movie. I mean, it's like most anticipated movie of the year. No, absolutely not, because it's like, what am I paying for? I mean, when you could wait 6 months to see it for $6, it doesn't make any sense to pay for it. I don't think so. Do you? I mean, would you pay $20 to see? I mean,
for some movies, yes. For most movies, no. But
I mean, shit, man, maybe I would just
for Trolls 2, I would not. But for the Chris Nolan movie, potentially, yeah. But I don't know. This is the weird thing. Obviously, it's kind of trite nowadays to say like, oh, the movie theaters they're all gonna die, blah blah blah, because they are. This is a disaster for everybody in the film industry.
It is, yeah.
But at the same time, like what is going to happen? Like how are these movies going to, like the movies that are currently completed, right, that were scheduled for release, they're holding off on those because they want obviously they want they have them exactly that comes with being in theaters. They have that already set, the money's already down. They do this all the time. This is something that they obviously, it's a strange situation, but studios are used to taking big losses and big profits, and that evening out in the end. That's kind of their whole model is, we subsidize the movies that don't make any money with the movies that make bucket loads, and so we'll make 10 movies a year, and then it's fine if 6 of them don't do well, if 4 of them rake us in the cash, so like that's kind of their model. The problem is this year, obviously, nothing is raking in the cash, and nothing will rake in the cash for the foreseeable future. So, like this is okay for the movies that are already either in late development or are being held for release. But how are they supposed to be greenlighting new movies that aren't coming to direct on demand or that aren't coming to TV? Like, how is that even possible? I literally don't understand.
If you're not Netflix, it's like, I don't know. Yeah, Netflix is coming out of this pretty well, and those sort of places. Of course but I don't really know what the whole system is for. I feel like I was hearing a lot of stories about movies that were being greenlit, but I feel like that's just all it is. It's just like this movie is being announced, but they're obviously not going to be going into production. I mean, I think production is being allowed for people to finish movies and things like that. Like Paul Schrader went back and finished his movie and stuff like that. But you can't mount like a massive superhero or large scale Christopher Nolan-esque production under these circumstances. I mean, it's just a fucking nightmare, man. I don't know what else to say.
It's terrible. It's terrible. I was talking about this today
to no end.
I was talking about this today with my coworker. It's like the thing that I miss the most, even more than seeing people and looking people in the face, and not having to see their covered, half face. The thing that I miss the most is just going out to a movie, like going to the Alamo, going to wherever, sitting down, and maybe having a drink, maybe having a popcorn, and just sitting down and watching a movie in a dark room for 3 hours. Like that is something that I crave. I literally crave it. I crave it so much that I tried to recreate the experience in my own room. Okay.
Yeah.
So like this is something that I am like desperate for. But the problem is, obviously that's not going to be the case in the near future. But even in the far future, I'm not even sure that it's going to be an option. So I'm very worried about the state of the film industry just in general. And like, we've always, or for the past couple of years, we've been talking about sort of the prevalence of TV and the golden age of TV, and this is kind of the
and we both personally enjoyed a lot of these TV shows too.
Of course, yeah. Although I will say, I mean, I much prefer sitting down and watching a movie than watching a TV show.
Yeah.
But I honestly in recent days, I mean, even just specifically the last couple of weeks, it's actually been really nice to be like, oh, I'll just put on an hour of TV instead of a 2-hour movie or whatever. So I do see the appeal for that. But I think this is just going to like torpedo that idea even more. Is that like people are going to not care about movies,
like lose the attention span is kind of what you're
100%. Yeah. People are going to want TV shows and they're not going to want movies. So, I mean, I think that's very sad. This might be hyperbolic, but it's possible that we're actually just witnessing the death of movies as we know and love them.
There was a guy who was talking about, and this is like very dark stuff, but he was talking about the idea of movies are like going the way of like poetry or like painting or these art forms that still exist in kind of a boutique or very niche setting, but are not in any way a mainstream commercial art form. that's I mean, like the most horrifying thing ever to me. I mean, I don't know. It can't die completely without, with the amount of talented people there are out there. Like, I feel like whoever there is, people are still going to be trying to make things, but
Right.
it certainly looks very black right now.
I mean, the thing about comparing it to, I enjoy the comparison, although I don't think it's right, because movies are an industry in a way that poetry and painting never were. Like, not even in their heights, So, I don't know.
No, I mean, it is still the most democratic kind of art form, where it's like you don't need to be highly educated to understand it. I mean, for the most part, and you don't have to. You also don't have to be rich to do it, because it's not like you go to see Hamilton or you go to theater. You have to pay so much to get in to see it. And movies, I mean, the prices have been going up, but still, it's not something that's insane for just a regular person. That's why I love the Grand Lake. Is like you get a really nice strata of people from different walks of life, all together seeing this movie. So, yeah, gosh, I hope they're doing okay.
Even the Alamo is, the tickets aren't that expensive in the grand scheme of thing. They're like, what, $12, $13? So, I mean, the price obviously is the food and the drink that's kind of where they get you. But the price of the ticket is pretty reasonable, especially for the experience that you're getting, I would say. But I don't. In my mind, this is I don't know. This is a clear case of. I think this is sort of the spiral of people's attentions were moving away from movies to begin with. Over the past, maybe, I don't know, since 2008, maybe, people's attentions were kind of receding from films as sort of the preferred medium. And this is just sort of going to accelerate it in a way that is, I would say, probably unprecedented. I mean,
it is. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to sound like some kind of like starry-eyed, optimist or anything like that. I mean, I do feel like you still are seeing. I mean, as much as we could shit on Marvel movies, for example. I mean, you can't discount movies like that and these larger scale movies impact in keeping theaters around and keeping people interested in coming to the movies. And then, by a greater, their impact in monopolizing movie is not good. But in terms of just giving people business, they're a big part of that. But also last year, you were seeing movies still. I mean, I guess maybe it's more the exception to the rule, but like Ford v Ferrari was like an enormous success. A movie that has no connection to anything. You know?
Parasite, a foreign movie, obviously was.
Yeah, Parasite. That's crazy.
Massive.
I
think last year. I think last year was kind of a. It's so funny because like it was not only was it one of the best years in movies, in a long time, it basically was. Like it was like such a peak and then such a valley this year.
I know, it was like you got
it's so crazy how stark it is.
It was a very kind of like 1970s year, where you get like interesting work by
exactly.
Jordan Peele, Bong, and Tarantino and Scorsese, all these people. And
it was a crazy year. It literally was. I mean, it was fantastic. I remember that was the happiest I've ever been at the Oscars. Because all of the movies on the list were like, oh, this is an incredible movie.
It was pretty strong. For as much as people complained, it was pretty good.
Even I liked Little Women. I didn't think it was as bad as you thought it was.
Uh-huh.
What was were there any movies that I really hated on the list?
I don't think so. I mean, Joker, Marriage Story were okay,
I liked
but they were
Joker.
fine.
I like Marriage Story.
Yeah, it was good. It was good. It was a good list, and
it was just a fantastic year. I don't what else can be said about it?
yeah,
There was so
Richard
many.
Jewell came out, very important.
Richard Jewell,
Uncut
Waves.
Gems. Yeah, it was Jojo Rabbit.
It's,
Yeah, I
I
mean,
mean,
it's
what
sort
a
of
year
like
for
having
movies.
it's like having like 1972 or 1975. Like
Yeah,
that's Jaws,
exactly.
Cuckoo's Nest, Dog Day Afternoon, Nashville, all that stuff. And then it's like, and then having Heaven's Gate and all those One from the Heart. Like it's like having all of those in one time this year. I mean, it's just so sort of demoralizing.
And
it looked like
yeah.
a great year on paper. Like if you looked at the
Exactly.
list of movies, you're like, oh my god. I mean, already we lost Edgar Wright's movie and like all these other guys who got pushed back. So,
I mean, I remember going into this year being like, wow, well, last year was a great year, but maybe this year can actually top it because of how many, incredible follow-ups this year are going to be. But like, obviously this year it's shameful to say the least. I mean,
Yeah.
this year is going to go down in history as an incredibly bad year just overall. But in movie history, I don't know, is this the worst year for movies?
It probably will be. I mean, frankly, even if all the movies that are scheduled to come out end up coming out, it's such a hobbled list. I still think I don't think it can really recover. I mean, what the things we know will come out, like what the things basically that's guaranteed are either the very small movies that will be VOD and anything Netflix has. So that means Fincher's movie is going to come out. That's kind of one you're sort of I'm holding on to personally. Mm-hmm. Even Wes Anderson's movie, I don't know if that, I forget who's doing that, Focus or I know Searchlight, and I feel like they might hold that back because that's something that could be a big hit under normal circumstances, and I could see that being held back. What else? Trial of the Chicago 7, Aaron Sorkin. Yeah, all right. Like Soul, that's definitely could be pushed back. I mean, November. I don't know. I'm not hopeful that stuff is gonna be open by November, frankly. And like at half capacity, like there's all these things that are against it. So like a big movie like that, or the new James Bond, or Black Widow, which are all supposed to come out in November.
Right.
I just think it's pretty unlikely. I mean, that Soul, that bums me out too, because Soul and Tenet, those were like the two I was most excited for. And Dune, I think Dune absolutely almost should get pushed back just because
Yeah, I think
that's
it will, for
that's
sure.
a risky movie already in terms of both Villeneuve and just the weirdness of it.
Yeah.
Wow, that really isn't. I'm looking. I'm like, there's even less than I thought. No new Charlie Kaufman movie is on Netflix. That'll probably be good, but yeah, I don't know.
I mean, it's so sad. It's just an embarrassing. Like I doubt something like Wonder Woman is going to come out this year. Black Widow, I don't think is going to come out this year. Yeah. I mean, I agree. Dune, probably not. Jeez, it's an embarrassing list when I'm just looking at it right now. It's so terrible. The fact that, I mean, well, okay, I amend my earlier statement of only watching 3 movies. I did watch 4.
Oh, really?
Yes, I watched Artemis Fowl.
Did you really?
It was terrible.
It's amazing to me, Cameron, because like there's so many times I talk to you and you've seen just a fraction of the films I've seen, but you always manage to see a film every year that's more terrible than any film that I see. Like, you saw Dog's Purpose. You saw last year you watched Cats. Even I didn't see Cats last year.
You should have.
Well, the thing about Cats is I'm saving that. Cats is like when we finally get to like hang out. That's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna sit in your room with you and watch Cats.
Oh, Jesus
together.
Christ! You're gonna bring that movie into my house.
I know, it'd be wonderful. Yeah, so that's funny. Artemis Fowl. Kenneth Branagh made that movie. Like,
yeah, I know. Although I will say, I know it's just so embarrassing because he made the Hamlet movie, which I think is actually really good.
you've seen his Hamlet, the 4-hour Hamlet?
Yeah, as far as an
really?
adaptation of Hamlet goes, I think it's pretty good. I don't like Hamlet originally as a book or a play. I don't think it's very
That's
good.
a hot take.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. Whatever. I don't feel like
overrated.
I just think it. Yeah, too many plot holes. Not enough good characters.
C+.
Shakespeare do better. But yeah, I actually think like that's a pretty good movie. What else has he directed, actually?
Well, Mick, I haven't seen his... The only movies I've seen by him are The Murder on the Orient Express, and then which is pretty good, and then Thor, which is not that good. The first Thor is pretty bad.
The original Thor. Wow, he really has just done...
But
a crock of it, hasn't he?
Yeah, the movies in the 90s, the Shakespeare movies, I mean, Mick considers him to be like the greatest Shakespeare director, like over Wells or Olivier.
I think that's probably... I don't know.
I haven't seen any of those movies by any of those guys, so I can't really say. But I mean, I find watching Shakespeare movies, you have to... There's an added amount of concentration that goes into 100%, it, where it's like your brain has to process the extra thing.
Maybe he did the Jack Ryan movie. Wow, this is what a
I'm looking
forward to his filmography.
I know. I'm looking forward to his Poirot movie because The Murder on the Orient Express is pretty fun. But I don't know. He seems like he's sort of just a guy. It's almost like he's those Marvel directors where I guess he is a Marvel director where he's sort of a gun for hire, and like I doubt he was really like jonesing to adapt Artemis Fowl. But
yeah, he's done since 2011 basically. He's done only terrible either adaptations or basically just movies to get a check. Like he did Thor, he did Jack Ryan, Shadow Recruit, he did Cinderella, Murder on the Orient Express. All Is True, which I don't know what that is. I guess that's a Shakespeare movie. Okay,
but apparently it was terrible.
Oh, I see. And then Artemis Fowl. So yeah, I mean,
oh man,
what an embarrassing list of movies.
And then his 90s work as an actor,
yeah, exactly.
Which
and
is
his
still
90s
wonderful.
Movies are basically entirely Shakespeare. So
yeah, I love him as an actor. I have a friend who really thinks he's really over the top, like in Dunkirk. But
he is a little bit. But it's
I think he's wonderful in
Dunkirk. Yeah.
No, I think he's wonderful in Dunkirk. But anyway. Okay, well, you didn't get to mention the TV you saw this year. Was there anything you wanted to mention?
Yeah, so I actually have watched a lot of TV. Weirdly, a lot of documentaries. So I watched The Last Dance, the Michael Jordan documentary, which is fantastic. I would actually recommend it to you now that it's
probably
on
the
Netflix.
most watched thing this year.
I think so, yeah. I think so. I think it's really good. I was thinking about rewatching it actually, so that's how good I think it is. And it's on Netflix now, so I would definitely recommend it.
It's on my list, yeah.
I watched Ozark season 3, which I think we should talk about kind of in depth, but we can save that for a little bit because I do want to talk to you about Bad Education as well. Because I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. It is now my favorite movie.
It's pretty great, right? Yeah.
Although not with a lot of competition necessarily, but yeah. And then I've been watching the HBO documentary I'll Be Gone in the Dark, which is about the Golden State Killer and Michelle McNamara, who is Patton Oswalt's wife, who passed away.
And it features him in it too, apparently, right?
Yeah. So it pretty heavily features him. It's very good. Kind of I don't want to say a straight true crime documentary, but it is pretty much. I mean, it follows her mainly. So it's kind of her story like wrapped in. Obviously, she wrote the book, or one of the major books about the Golden State Killer. But so I would say it's highly recommended.
Sounds kind of like a documentary, like version of something like Zodiac, where it's like you're following the obsessed person who's not not a cop or anything, but who just that takes over their life in some ways.
Yeah, and it's still ongoing. So I haven't seen episode 4 yet, which came out yesterday or Sunday. But yeah, it's very good. And then I've been watching Unsolved Mysteries, the new season, which has been quite good as well. I'm about halfway through. That's I think that's all I can remember. I feel like
and your Netflix reality TV show.
Oh,
right?
yes.
What's it called? Which one did you watch?
Love is Blind, which is fantastic. Highly recommend Love is Blind.
That's so funny that like for so many people, ranging from you to like Mick himself, who also watched. He really got into the show Too Hot to Handle, where it's all these hot people who are put on an island and they
can't have sex.
They can't have sex and or whack off or that sort of thing.
Yes,
and it's funny how people in quarantine, it's like their taste in trash somehow becomes elevated, and that's what you guys want to watch, I guess.
Well,
I don't know.
It's funny because like I think the thing that that captured me about Love is Blind is the fact that it really doesn't take itself very seriously. It's so like obviously it's not a joke, but it's so obviously like overly made, overly produced in the way that it has the classic like music cues that are terrible and cheesy. It's got the
coin going across the symbol. It's the classic one.
Yeah, it's exactly. And it's got the it just does so many things where you're like the producers know, they're in on the joke. Everybody knows that this is ridiculous, this is over the top. But at the same time, like there's something kind of really fun and compelling about the premise too. The fact that they're complete strangers, obviously. So I don't know. There's something that I think is very cathartic about watching that show. It's a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it.
I can respect it. I mean, I was a big Survivor guy back in the day, and I watched some of it with my cousin like a year ago, and I was like astonished. It's great television. It's really fantastic. But I don't know. I haven't been watching a ton of TV, other than Ozark. But Ozark, in that case, I've been watching 3 seasons of it because you assigned me to watch season 1, which of course galvanized me to watch season 2 and 3.
Sure, yeah.
But yeah, you couldn't watch an 80-minute film I recommended, but that's okay. You and Adam both. It's like that you recommend stuff and I watch them, and then I say, "Do you watch them?" And you go, "No, I don't."
No.
But that's all right. But Ozark, yeah, amazing. I mean, I think season 1 is still my favorite, but 3 really was. I mean, should we just talk about it a little right now? I mean,
yeah, let's do it. Yeah.
I guess should we? Are we just gonna talk about spoilers and just put a tag on it, or what do you think?
Yeah, we could talk about spoilers. I say let's do it. It's basically
impossible to talk about if you haven't seen.
Right. If you haven't seen Ozark, well, I don't know. Do you want to talk about before we get to that? If we're going to talk about spoilers, do you want to save that for last and talk about Bad Education for a little? Like I don't have like a lot to say.
We can talk about it. Right. We can talk about it right now. I think it's fine, and then just save for the films for the end. Because I think, whatever. Let's just spoil it. I mean, because the 3rd season, what I realized about it is they've lost what made the first, and to a certain extent the 2nd season, dramatically compelling, which is that it's like he's on a boat with holes that are, filling up this way and that, where it's like he's in a constant state of trying to keep himself afloat. Because they have it more secure, they have to find the drama in like interpersonal conflict more so. And I thought that was just brilliantly done, where it felt like just this like coiling of tension between all these people, between Ruth and the mob guy who's on the boat, and Helen and them. And Helen not wanting to tell her kid about what she does, and the kid hanging out with the other kids, Like,
and the brother, obviously, he's
and then
massive.
Yeah, of course, the brother, and he's really the kind of the biggest dramatic impetus, because he's first being, him, is he going to do anything? And then once he does something, it's like, what's going to happen to him? What are they going to do about it?
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I think it is interesting because there was certainly a tonal shift in season 3 as far as like, you're right, it's not sort of the like really anxiety inducing mode of like, he's trying to plug all these holes, he's trying to get everything sorted out. When he solves one problem, 3 more appear.
Mm-hmm.
It's not quite that in this season, although I'm hoping, and this is why I view season 3 kind of as a transitional season in a lot of ways. And obviously there's going to be sort of a, I think with the new partnership, there's probably going to be like an elevation in what they're going to do and what they're sort of capable of doing.
Right.
And I'm excited to see that as far as dramatically, like what that means for them. But yeah, I mean, I think there was a shift in season 3, specifically because they needed a way. It kind of reminded me actually of, remember when House of Cards, when everything kind of fell apart. It was either like season 3 or 4 because he became president.
I feel like he became president, and then there was a season where it became about their relationship, which I thought was pretty good. And I think it was definitely season 5 where I started to not like the show.
But yeah, for me, when he became president, I completely lost interest, because he had gotten to like where the show was going already, and like everything that he was doing before in the first couple of seasons, he was like gearing himself politically to be like in this, in this position. And then once he got there, it was like he's won in a certain way, and they had to make sort of drama in a different sense. They had to shift the drama, and I don't think, for me, they didn't really handle it as well as I thought they could have.
I gotta rack my brains to even remember that show, frankly. There's
right,
so much I just don't remember.
There was a lot that I sort of wished, like I wanted there to be more like, political drama and less of the sort of interpersonal stuff. And so to me, Ozark season 3 reminded me of that, except in the positive direction, where it was like they shifted tones, but still kept me engaged and still kept me interested, in a way that is really kind of rare, I would say.
No, it was totally compelling. Like, just everything about their situation, and about I don't know, just having this sort of time bomb with the brother and this whole thing.
Yeah.
And also the I felt like more than any of the other ones, it was sort of Linny taking center stage.
Yes.
Yes. After obviously being, I mean, she's basically lead or second lead. You feel like she's kind of second lead in the first season, but it sort of has become almost her show. I mean, I feel like she's more the lead than Bateman in a lot of ways this season. And I mean, I'm giving a performance that's, to me, on the level of, it's as great as any performance I've seen in my lifetime. It's on the level of Tom Hardy in Locke, Bryan Cranston in Breaking Bad. Like it's on that level of like, every moment you're watching her and you're just going like what is she gonna do? What that I remember there's like one moment where where she gets the call from Bateman of what the brother did, and she's in front of Helen, and she has to like not react to what's going on and act like everything's fine. And it's just like, oh my god, like it's just like, oh, give her the I guess it's an Emmy in this case, but like, damn.
Yeah.
Give her all the awards. Did I tell you I had a dream about Laura Linney was trying to kill me as her Ozark character? She and Jason Bateman didn't want to do it as much, but she was like really like, we got to kill this guy. I had to go on the run from the Bird family.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny too because this year a couple months ago, I also watched Mystic River, which she has
right.
kind of a weird sequence where it's very reminiscent of her character in Ozark.
That's
So,
funny because when I rewatched it, I hadn't seen Ozark yet, but now I know what you're talking about. It is very similar. Yeah, I mean that was weird in Mystic River because it was like so out of nowhere. Like I kind of didn't like it watching it this time, but in Ozark, it's a great arc, and I love how in the second season it's like they almost change places. You know, realize
exactly.
how it was
Yeah,
like that?
exactly.
Where
Yeah.
it's like a lot of it was about it's like the first season was about opening yourself to evil. And then the second is about like closing yourself to compassion and how he is just kind of like cold. But then it's like when he, and I hope you've heeded the spoiler warning, kills Mason. That's when it's like all of a sudden it's like he has the breakdown and she's the one who keeps it together. Which at first glance you think does that make sense? But then it's like I think about like times where that's happened in my life where it's like. Maybe even not with me personally, but like if I'm the friend who's more neurotic or more emotional, but then the other person who's the more stable one has a crisis, you then, come into your own and you have to be the one who's like gets things done. She's the one cleaning up the blood, getting rid of the body, and he's just sitting there like in shock. I mean, I think that's still my favorite episode. I mean, that episode is like an hour masterpiece, I think.
I agree. I think it is. It's definitely the best episode of the show. I mean, it's the one that is like always on the like front of my mind.
Yeah.
When I think about the show, just because it's so grim, but at the same time it's so like, it has such a dark view of humanity, but then also. Somehow there's like a little glimmer of like of hope in the same breath. Like I don't even know how
I don't know about that episode. Glimmer of hope.
Well, I guess in that season there's kind of I don't know. Maybe
well,
not.
what I liked about
it's
Mason,
all dark.
Well, but the glimmer of hope thing I agree with Mason, where he in the end of the first season. His holding on to his faith, you think he's drowning the baby, and then I was like, when that happened, I was like, wow, that's a really dark point of view. That it's like life is like so not worth living. It's better to kill your own child than to let him live in this world. And then he brings it back up, and you realize it's a baptism. It's like that was really like actually quite moving. Where it's like the show sort of reaffirming a sense of the family will be together. This man will hold on to his faith, and then 8 episodes later. It's like all that is shattered, and also the whole family thing of like that was the part that was where it like ascended to genius level, where the interview ends that episode where he kills Mason, and they bring in the baby to show that they're like a nice, happy family that adopts a child. Yeah. Like that is like some of the darkest shit I've ever seen. I mean, wow, incredible. I mean, I'm at a loss for words to even describe it. It's just great.
Yeah, it's so good. It's so good. It's so depraved and so. Wonderful. I don't know. There's maybe I have an intense fascination for the depraved, but I don't know. I think most people kind of would be compelled by I don't know by I think the writing and the characters are just so well fleshed out. I really think they're fantastic.
No, it's I mean the show is just completely compelling every minute. I mean, it's not because I watch movies that are 2 hours long, and I'm like, oh, what like you're bored. There's no drama going on with a lot of them, and this is 30 hours of just being completely compelled, completely never bored for 1 second. I don't know. Was there anything else about season 3? The whole thing with the ending was just like a little bit. That was like the only thing that was troubling to me, where it's like you knew Linny's character had to go that way, but I was also like, I was a little bit, I don't know, like I didn't feel like I completely believed that turn. Like that's a really like
with the brother.
with having the brother killed, where it was like it felt
Yeah.
it felt a little like they had like tipped the scales a little bit, where it's like they made him so dangerous at the end, where he keeps calling them and that sort of thing, where it's like he really kept endangering himself, that it became a little bit, I don't know, like less ambiguous or that sort of thing.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Although I do think the actual like sequence of of what happens, where she's in the diner and she asks him, what's your plan for your 5-year plan? I think it's just so.
Oh, yeah.
It's
Which becomes
so
kind of like
heartbreaking.
her like De Niro. How does a person make a phone call like that? Like where she says that kind of later. Like who says that to their brother? But I don't know. It just felt like I feel like they could have. I don't know what it is, because it's like you can't. It has to go that way. Her character is going in that direction. That's the most dramatic place it needs to go. If he just gets killed by Helen, what's that dramatically? What's that character? Like, that's nothing.
Right.
But
right.
I don't know. It just felt like it was like sort of losing me. And then in the 10th episode, it came right back around, and that whole brilliant thing, but with their power plays with Helen.
Which is
great.
The 10th episode, I think, is maybe the best of that season. I love the Jonah holding Helen at gunpoint sequence. I think it's so incredible. It's so tense and so well made, and like there's something that's so scary about that sequence. Even though you hate Helen, by that point you're so done with, honestly, she actually has a weird arc where you start off really despising her.
She's terrifying, and then you kind of like her, or
and then
you're make peace with her being a part of the family or a friend or something like that.
Yeah, and there's sort of a weird camaraderie, even though you're still obviously very on edge about her entire being,
For sure,
because she's an unsettling person. But
mm-hmm.
And then it's compelling with her daughter as well, because she's it's the most vulnerable you see her. In the show at that point, you kind of have this this weird, I guess, turnaround of her being on edge about something, and her being almost like a real person in a way that you haven't seen before. Whereas before, in the first 2 seasons, she was kind of almost this like maniacal robot, always texting and kind of she's the administrative head of the cartel, which is terrifying. She has no feeling, no remorse. She's just there to sort of sign the papers.
But you empathize with the girl and wanting to not we don't really want the daughter to find out, because she really is kind of an innocent character. And the whole look that crosses her face when Ben arrives at their house is just the most terrifying thing, man. That's another great performance in that show is Janet McTeer. She's really to go from that terrifying
so
to then
scary,
being sympathetic, a little bit sympathetic, to then even more terrifying is just brilliant.
Yeah, and then but then at the same time, since even you really do hate her character, you're also completely worried about Jonah. He is the most not, I don't want to say innocent character, but he's the most sympathetic character of the show.
For sure, yeah.
He's the one where if things only go a certain way, you think he could kind of come out of this somewhat normal. He can kind of come out of this maybe not without some damage, obviously, but he can sort of find his own way in life at that point. I guess so is the daughter.
Yeah, Charlotte too, I would say,
a bit, but she's a little bit more involved, I guess.
Maybe. Yeah, I mean,
I guess in this season, but
you care about both of them a lot, and they've really done a wonderful job not making Jonah just like a victim or like just like a kind of like your typical kid of a villain character, you know, like I mean, obviously I loved all the stuff with him and Buddy, like that was just wonderful, and him learning. I have in my screensaver thing that shot of him learning how to fire a rifle into a watermelon with Buddy going like this. They've done a really great job with those, getting all the characters, you know, and we even talk about Ruth and her relationship and that sort of thing. Yeah, you feel really bad for Ruth this whole season, man.
Me too. Yeah,
terrible.
It's horrifying. Speaking of horrifying, though, what do you think about the Darlene love angle, which is just
so great. That was so
it's
great.
It's so horrifying.
That was awesome. No, I was like, I remember literally like when that happened, when they first kissed, I was like, oh yeah. Like I actually like out loud, I was like, oh yeah, that's what because it's like,
oh no,
you want it to go in that direction. You want it to go in this like the perversity of it. But also it's like, I don't know, like you feel like, I don't know. I don't know about, maybe I'm just like a sicko, but I started to have more sympathy towards Darlene in this season.
No.
Really?
I did not, no.
Because I felt like
Darlene is a scary motherfucker. Like she is.
Oh no, she is. But I felt like she was right about a lot of things. Like she's right about the Bird family. I mean, like she's a psychopath, but she is right about the Bird family. And also, you know, I don't know, it was pretty cool when she went and shot the guy in the testicles who beat up Ruth. I mean, that was
pretty good.
That was pretty great. Yeah. Oh yeah, another very memorable performance. Yeah, that whole relationship. I think I might have taken a picture of the shot where they're like, she's like knitting and he's like reading a magazine or something. There's like an old married couple. It's like, what is this?
It's so weird. It's so weird.
I haven't looked on Twitter
I love
about
how
it,
strange it goes in that direction.
Yeah, it takes balls to take your like a relationship in that and pair off characters in that kind of way.
Yeah.
But I feel like it works, and you believe that they would go together, which I feel like it's also a risk. I was gonna say, because audiences, I feel like your average, you know, or general audiences, a lot of people might watch this and go, what the fuck, like the old lady and the kid, like what is this? But to me it's like, I don't know, I totally believed it. I didn't feel like it was something they were doing to be shocking for the sake of shocking, or to be like just perverse. Like to me it made sense that those two, you know, in their kind of like state of loneliness, or looking for someone else, I guess. I believed it would happen. Yeah, that's great. I forgot about that whole subplot. That was fantastic.
It's so weird. Yeah. It's
and every person's reaction when they find out about it. Yeah, it's just like, what? Who? Yeah. But anyway, so should we go over to our best of the year
movie list? Yeah.
My massive list of the best. Should I briefly just rattle off my top 10?
Yeah, do your top 10. I mean, I obviously don't have a top 10 because I haven't seen 10 things.
Seen 10 movies. and so my 10, I'll say by section which are like, because it's like, because of the number of movies, there are movies in a top 10 that I wouldn't say are like absolutely must see movies. I mean, I have 10 movies I think are absolutely like between either great or like solidly good movies. But nothing, not everything on this list I would say like, oh, you have to run out and see it, rather than, you know, the millions of great movies or hundreds of great movies you could watch on Criterion Channel or anything else. Right. I don't know if I would recommend seeing The Old Guard with Charlize Theron, but that is my number 10. That's kind of an interesting superhero movie, a very dark superhero movie. About these basically people who are unable to die, but it does it in like a realistic way where it's like it would just be really horrible and existentially despairing. That, you know, she plays a character who's, you know, been around since, you know, biblical times basically. So that's, you know, kind of interesting movie. And number 9, Officer and a Spy. That's the Polanski movie, which, to anyone who listens to this, if anyone, feel free to email me and I'll direct you to where to find that if you want to watch it, because it is completely you're unable to find it, or I think buy it on Blu-ray with English subtitles. But I think it's a really solid thriller. Then there's a movie called Blow the Man Down, which is about like this. It's actually kind of Ozark-esque fishing community up in like Alaska, and these two women who sort of or two sisters who discover kind of like the darker underbelly of the city. And I saw it before I saw Ozark, but it sort of feels like a 90-minute riff on that kind of thing, where it's like this community, all the darkness is coming out of this seemingly quaint community. Yeah, nice little, I think it's a first-time movie, too. Number 7 is Greyhound with Tom Hanks, which is just a solid thriller. It's very, like, Dunkirk-esque, surprisingly. I think you might enjoy this, actually, Cameron, out of any of these on the lower level, because it's just so minimalist. It's not, like, poetic or great in the way Dunkirk is by any stretch, but it's interesting to see a movie where it's just about like the tactics and the angles and just the everyday things of every person's place on this ship in these battle sequences.
Right.
So I thought that was nicely done. Number 6 is Rebuilding Paradise, which is Ron Howard's documentary about the Paradise fires, but more than anything, it's about the aftermath of the fires and people sort of rebuilding their lives in different ways, and it's very moving, interesting movie. Number 5, I would actually be nice to do an episode about this because I think you'd find it interesting. It's called The Vast of Night, and that's a first-time movie that this guy made for $700,000, and it does not look like that. It's like a beautiful-looking 50s period sci-fi movie that he does a lot with. He does so much with the limited means of like.
Yeah.
Did you watch Mike and Jay talk about this?
No,
I did an
I
episode
haven't.
about it. Yeah, just a great. There's a lot of these like long dialogue scenes and scenes over the radio where they're talking to people. There's an extended sequence where a guy calls in, and in certain parts the camera just like goes to black and you just listen to him. I think the director said he wanted it to be almost like a podcast or something in certain places, and just a pretty brilliant first-time movie. Number 4 is Palm Springs, which is. Do you know what this movie's about?
I don't think so.
Well, this is one where maybe it'd be nice to not say anything about it because, I mean, I knew the premise
it's Andy
of it.
Samberg's movie?
But it's Andy Samberg and Kristen Milioti, and it's a really interesting sort of sci-fi romance movie that I'll sort of restrain myself from saying anything more because it's the sort of thing that's fun to go in cold.
Yeah.
Very funny, very entertaining movie that plays with its premise in a lot of interesting ways. Number 3 is The Assistant, which actually stars Julia Garner, who plays Ruth in Ozark. And this is the movie where it's like she's basically works as an assistant to like a Harvey Weinstein type
Right.
guy. And probably the most like technically adventurous or audacious movie I've seen this year, in that it is so utterly mundane. If you look at the ratings, you could see people went into it expecting a tense thriller about sexual harassment, and they're faced with just an 80-minute film that's about, cleaning up after your boss and copying papers and all the mundane things that happen. But as it goes along, you're watching actually a very, very smart portrayal of being sort of almost semi-complicit to these things, or having these things happen around you and they're ambiguous, but it's really terrible. And seeing a person who's not, you see so many movies that are about women in movies where you feel like, I don't know, I feel like in so many movies, I mean, it's actually not just women, it's just movies where you have a protagonist who is confident, or a protagonist who is aspirational. And this to me was like one of the most relatable protagonists, in that it's a person who's not confident and not, fearless and wanting to stop these things, but also is, for good reason terrified. I mean, she's at the bottom of the rung of power in this company. and just a really strangely compelling movie given how sort of mundane it is. All right, number 2 is The Invisible Man, which for me is just the most entertaining movie this year. I think it is the last movie I saw at the Grand Lake before lockdown, and it's just a blast. I mean, it's just completely entertaining in kind of like a classic Hitchcock sort of way. I mean, it does have interesting themes actually about like basically a woman being gaslit and most horrifying situation you could possibly be in as a woman. But more than anything, it's just a great piece of entertainment. And then, so number 1, at least for now, is Bad Education. I just watched it again today, and I'm not sure. I'm glad it sounds like you liked it, so maybe I guess I didn't overhype the movie.
Yeah.
Watching again, I felt like maybe it's just that sort of thing of once you know where it's going, it's not as riveting as it was the first time. But I was like, I don't know. I could see if I'm watching Invisible Man or Assistant again, I might shift things a little bit. But right now, it's number 1, and I think it's a really terrific piece of filmmaking. I mean, it's really
I agree.
strong. Tell me what you thought of it, though.
Yeah, I really loved it. I loved. Well, first of all, I didn't know anything about the plot of the movie going in. So
The premise or anything?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
I didn't even know about the story of. I guess this is the largest embezzlement scheme in education in U.S. history.
Public school history. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So so I didn't know anything about that. So it was really, really interesting to sort of see that unfold and see that obviously there's something off about Hugh Jackman's character from the beginning. There's something that you're kind of unsure about, but you also really like him, or at least I did. I thought he was
early on you respect his like the sort of effort he puts into his everyday interactions.
Yeah, exactly. And the fact that he's doing flashcards to remember, people's names, and there's something really interesting about sort of that character who's so dedicated to his craft in a way as being the superintendent that you're like,
as far as at first,
you're like, whoa, this person is like very good at what he's doing, but almost in a way that kind of creeps you out too.
Yes.
It's almost to a way where you're like, this is so weird. Like, he doesn't seem like a real person, obviously, and that's kind of the intent is that he's
no, it's all about
hiding.
the sort of mask he puts on.
The
I mean,
facade,
in some ways, literally, because I mean he's doing all this stuff to his face. That's how the movie opens.
Yeah, he's getting.
But it is all about this kind of facade that's crumbling as the movie proceeds, and
obviously well, I guess spoilers for this movie.
Sure.
He obviously has his the situation of his 2 gay love interests, which you see unfold as the movie goes on, and it's so funny because it's very smart how they introduce sort of the idea of my wife passed away, and and her memory is still fresh, and you kind of get that picture, and it's almost like you believe him in that moment. You sort of have this like, that's sweet, but then even in the next scene when he's talking to his assistant, even in that next scene there's something off about it because they're joking about how that's ridiculous, and like, so you're kind of thinking like, oh, is it because she's she's kind of older, or is it whatever, but then
she's not your type.
They make the joke that she's not your type. So there's something off immediately about that, even though you kind of are sympathetic in that, like, oh, that's, he's obviously, it's not impropriety or anything. He's not trying to take advantage of his position. Although in some ways he ends up doing exactly that. You know, he actually does end up
for sure.
You know, taking advantage of his position as an educator in more ways than one.
That's how seductive Hugh Jackman is. That's like you want to believe him. You want to believe that he's this charming guy, but it's like there's this artificiality to it that kind of makes you a little confused early on in the movie. I mean, I went in pretty cold actually myself. Like I knew it was about embezzlement, but I didn't know who was involved, and I didn't know if it was just Alice and Janney or if it was other people. So I was like a little like you're unsure. I mean, there's definitely something creepy about it, but on the same time, he kind of reminded me a little bit of actually my middle school principal, who did like what he did, where he memorized the names of every kid in the school. Like he would go to the classrooms and he would like memorize everyone, and he would know everyone's name, and he would always be friendly when you talked to him, and he was like a great guy. I mean, he was wonderful. I mean, as far as I don't think he was stealing from our school.
No embezzlement.
But, yeah, as far as I know. But and with Jackman, you know, and then plus just Hugh Jackman in real life. I mean, as far as we know too, seems like a very charming person. Have you ever seen that video of him where he meets a guy who was like his student when he did teaching like back in the day? There's like this really sweet video where it's like a guy who's interviewing him was like a guy who was his former student, or so. I guess Hugh Jackman taught in some capacity. But it's just like very sweet video. Though in light of this movie, you know, this guy's an actor. Who knows? But
right.
You always have this feeling, especially in these recent years with actors. But he's like Tom Hanks. He's one of those guys who you want to think is as charming as he seems in his public appearances. Great performance by Hugh Jackman. I mean, like I think it's his best work ever, probably. It's just this like,
potentially. Well, I mean, he is fantastic in The Prestige, obviously, but it's not quite on the same.
I was thinking Logan too.
He's great in Logan. Yeah,
he's great in Logan, and actually, he's really great in a movie has kind of a similar character called The Front Runner, where he played a presidential candidate who's like this very charming guy who maybe actually would have had some success, but then it was discovered that he was having an affair, and then it's like once this happens, it's like I love in both movies where it's like the Wolverine like comes out of him, where he just really gets. In this one, they save it to the very end, and I think it might be my favorite scene in the movie, where that mother with her little kid reading the fucking note comes back.
Yeah.
And it's
so
like
good.
he just finally snaps and starts like yelling at them and talking about how ungrateful the children are or whatever. It's like, oh my god. It's just like the most amazing fucking acting I've seen this year, really. And Janney was great too. That's another really
fantastic,
powerful scene where where her realization that she's gonna get fired and that he's not gonna be on her side, and then her subsequent anger towards her son. I mean, it's just like amazing.
Yeah, and that I love the sequence where she's trying to talk to him, she's trying to sort of get in contact with him, and he's completely stonewalling her, and she's so dejected, but also there's like so much anger in like behind that, and you can see that it's so like, I don't know, it's a great performance because you can really sort of see the emotional processing of her being like so shocked that she sort of trusted this person, and
he thought he would handle it,
Exactly, yeah, and then the realization that he's not going to, the shocking realization that he's not going to, and the sort of anger and hatred that comes with that. It's a fantastic performance, and I think honestly I would say it's a very nuanced picture of both of them as sort of like flawed but normal people. They're not these like complete.
They're not Jordan Belfort people.
Yeah, exactly.
You feel like they're people who it's like, I don't know. It's like when he tells that story about like paying for the meal they had and they used the wrong card and that was the first time. You almost feel like you almost believe that like if he hadn't done that, maybe he wouldn't have ended up doing what he did. You know, like you don't feel like he's a guy who, you know, went into his job, you know. And it's like you don't go into education if your aspiration is to become immensely rich and criminal, you know, like you feel like it's just an offshoot of his like personal weakness. But of course, the movie is not excusing it by any stretch of the imagination. No. And I think it also does a great job of sort of, I feel like just in small ways, the director is like showing the amount of economic disparity that goes on in these sort of behind the scenes of public education, especially that cut with the like jazz music or whatever it is, where there's the dripping ceiling, and then it goes to Vegas, and they're having fun in Vegas, you know.
Yeah,
like,
it's great.
It's very sharp, and also the shots of all the houses, you know, all the massive houses when he's going to the book club, like that was it reminded me. Well, it didn't remind me of something, but it made me think about how a lot of movies about, especially about like teenagers. You know how it's like all movies, they always are like immensely rich. You know, like I don't know if you ever seen like Love, Simon or any movies like that, but it's like every person in the movie has like a massive house like that, and it's just sort of like, but it's never something that's commented on really. It just feels like it's just something that's like because the people who made the movie, that's the world they occupy. You know, but this movie feels like it has an understanding of that and all this sort of ironies going on. Also, like,
and then the sequence where Ray Romano, who also puts in a great performance as well. Oh, yeah. His resurgence has been very fun to watch. I've loved it.
I love him in these last few years.
Yeah. But you know that sequence where he's trying to explain to the board and he's like, you know, and then if this gets out, you know, the property values they'll go down. And Ray Romano's like, he's right, you know, we gotta shut it down, you know. And you're like obviously, you know, all of these people are incredibly self-interested, and that's kind of why there's almost this perverse incentive to keep this quiet, to keep this hidden under the rug. And you know, so at the same time, there's like, he is kind of at some points he's a scary character in a lot of ways, especially his interaction with the journalist, where he goes and he sits with her on the bench, and he's like, if you do this, you're unloading something that you have no control over, that you don't know what's going to happen, you know. And that's such a great moment, because it's so disturbing, I guess. It's so like I don't know. It's very
well, he's completely charming, but and he's not he never changes his demeanor that much, but it's just, you know, it's also, you feel like, and you're also like, he's flexing the power he has too. There's always this sense of like the fallout of what's happening is that like he like where he threatens Roy Romano's. He says, I can get your daughter into Harvard. Yeah, like that whole thing, which also is a powerful moment where Romano sort of like is like almost tempted, or he thinks about it and then he like walks away. And it's like, it tells you a lot about his character too. He also a great performance from him. And the whole arc with the reporter, the teenage reporter, and her father was also really just well done. And that whole thing of giving her a real reason to go and break the story, you know, with what happened to her father. It's just a very sharp movie. I felt like the first time I watched it, it was like, you know, 3 shots in, I could see that this guy was really had a sharp understanding of everything. The thing that got me the first was like when he shows the janitor cleaning the floor as the speech is going on, and the camera follows it over to the bathroom. I know that's just like a small thing, but it was just something like that where I felt like you're seeing a really a person who has a motivation behind every shot, every cut, in this movie. Nothing
there's
done
something
by accident.
virtuosic about sort of the filmmaking of it too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He made a pretty good movie a few years ago called Thoroughbreds, which I don't know if you've seen, but
No.
that also had this quality of just very kind of slick, intelligent filmmaking. Even though I don't think the story was as compelling as this one. It certainly helps he's aided by a cinematographer who shot. Did you realize who Lyle Vincent is? He shot Girl Walks Home Alone at Night and Anna Lily Amirpour's movies, among other things.
Yes.
So it's like you combine this, what could be a pretty starch drama, with really talented filmmaking. And also the score, I think, elevates things a lot, especially the kind of virtuosic quality. It's the guy who does the Jordan Peele's movies. Very classical score. I love the montage of the son buying all the stuff at Ace Hardware, and then the reveal, the push in, which is like so Scorsese, that push in on the credit card, and the realization. That's such a just a believable way of it, that breaking down too. It's always just some really stupid person like that. Perfect casting of that guy he always plays like the dude bros and all these sitcoms and whatever. Pretty great cast of just like in the smaller roles too. Did you realize that all three of the wives from The Irishman are in this movie?
No, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, the woman at the book club who flirts with him is Pesci's wife.
Yes.
The mother who keeps bringing in her kid is De Niro's wife, and his assistant with the blonde or white hair is Hoffa's wife. I don't know. He must be well connected or something, getting all these people in his movie.
Well, and then Ray Romano,
Yeah, Ray Romano and Hugh Jackman, all these people, but. Young guy. I think he's maybe only 30 or something like that. Real talented filmmaker. Was there anything else? I felt like watching this time around, there were just certain things where I felt like Rafael Casal, like things like that, where the filmmaking is so economical and he's so gifted at conveying things with like limited means that it almost feels like there are things that could have been fleshed out more, like their relationships. I don't know. I might have just been watching the movie a little bit Cameron's not going to like this movie in my head. Like sometimes you watch a movie again, we watch it with someone else and you're thinking a little too hard about it. And I'm not sure if I'm that crazy about the ending of the movie. Like I get it, what he's doing. I don't know. Did you like the ending of the movie? The fantasy sequence?
Yeah, I didn't think it was that...
It's not bad or anything. It's just I felt like
it didn't detract for me, honestly. I think the bulk of the movie is really sort of the obviously the sort of realism of the premise, and it's actually a very grounded movie. So yeah, I mean it did not bother me that there was this sort of, I don't know, quasi experimental, I guess, just narratively. It
just felt like it deserved, I don't know, I thought it deserved something a little bit more like a final like button on the movie, the way other movies do. I don't know what that would be. One of the other things I just felt like, I remember the first time being a little disappointed was that Janny's character kind of falls out of the movie a little bit. I was like she's so great in the movie, and it feels like they deserve to have another scene together. I mean, like, you understand the point is that like he can't face her and all of that, but at the same time, I was like, I definitely feel like the first time I was waiting for that scene where it's like they finally. In fact, I thought that was what the ending was going to be. I thought him in prison. I thought she was going to like have a scene that was going to be the last scene of the movie. So I guess I was a little disappointed by that, but these are all very small quibbles with what I think is pretty excellently made movie on all accounts. Just great work, and even just smaller scenes and roles like the guy who plays Jackman's husband. Like that to me is just like a devastating moment where he finds out. Like that was just great, and Yeah, Rafael Casal, as always, is wonderful.
Yeah.
Always like to see him around. He went to my high school and even had the same film teacher as me.
Yeah, that's so fun.
Yeah, he said he was the same. He said he was just like how he is in Blind Spotting, which is pretty horrifying. He was expelled from Berkeley. I'm not sure if I told you that, but
Really?
yeah. But
Well,
he's done well.
Doing
for
well
himself.
for himself.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you liked the movie.
Me too.
You like Bad Education.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
And I guess I don't know. That's all I got, I suppose. But anyway, get some sleep, Cameron.
Sounds good.
I'll let you go now.
I'm dozing off, to be honest. But
yeah, I look forward, man, also to like watching movies with you in person again. Like,
I agree. Yeah,
it's been a long time.
It has been.
When I get back to Berkeley, hopefully we can do that.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
all right.
Take care, man.
Sounds good. Have a good night.
Good night.